All right, let's get cooking. Welcome to the latest edition of Chin Check Sports Radio. I'm your host, JD. I don't think you all been taking the time out to listen to us. And as always, we welcome any suggestions, feedback, comments, and criticisms, which improves the quality of our program, which ultimately improves your listening experience. We're going to do a different broadcast this evening. Our review of UFC 245. And I almost felt a highly emotional fight card. I think the beginning of the end for two all-time greats and another all-time great continuing to build their legacy, which now makes you wonder what else can this legend really accomplish in the game. Now, let's start from the lower card. I don't want to say lower card, but the earlier bouts. Namely, the possible end of bantamweights Jose Aldo and Uriah the California Kid Faber. And in the case of Uriah Faber, suffered a devastating head kick knockout by Russian Peter Yan. And this was Uriah Faber's third fight back after a 3-year absence. And before he took that 3-year absence, he lost a couple of fights then. He's 40 years old now. To sustain that type of a brutal knockout, maybe this might be the end. And this guy was definitely an exciting fighter with the long, blonde, brownish hair flowing and having his hair flowing, or hair in cornrows, and seeing him fight in those other promotions. He definitely was exciting, but at 40 years old, to sustain that type of brutal knockout, it could be time to maybe hang it up, because you don't get any younger. You don't take the strikes as well as you did when you were younger. But the one thing I will say about the UFC, you will say a guy is down and out, and then next thing you know, he'll have one last great fight left in it. But just for the action that we saw, it might be the end of Uriah Faber. And if it is, we definitely enjoyed watching for all these years. Jose Aldo suffered a split decision loss to Brazilian Marion Arias. Now, in a split decision, it's clearly or obviously not as bad as a head kick KO. But the problem is, Jose Aldo, ever since the Conor McGregor knockout, has lost 4 of 7 fights. Again, he's getting older, and I love watching Jose Aldo, one of the best fighters of his time, one of the best fighters of all time, another Hall of Famer. But ever since that Conor McGregor fight where he was knocked out, and I believe I was 11, 8, 9, basically less than 15 seconds, he really hasn't been the same fighter since. And I love Jose Aldo because he can strike, he can grapple. Of course, he has that cool scar on his face, chick's dick scars. And again, he's getting older. Fighters are catching up to him. But I think Jose Aldo has more of a future maybe fighting than a Uriah Faber does. The guy who he lost to was just knocked out in the previous fight to fight for a title. So there's something to keep in mind as to the type of opponent that he lost to. So definitely, I think Uriah Faber, it might be the end of Uriah Faber. Jose Aldo might have some fights left. Knowing how the UFC does business, they maybe give 1 or 2 more fights to kind of see what he does before they eventually cut ties with him. I will say that much for the UFC. If a fighter is not winning or they lose consecutive fights, they do what they have to do to remove the fighter from the organization. Amanda Nunes with a unanimous decision in the rematch versus Jermaine D. Renemi. Amanda Nunes, I don't know what else you can say about this living legend. She needs to be in the Hall of Fame 5 minutes ago. Amanda Nunes is, I know they call Christine Cyborg Santos, but this woman is clearly a Terminator in her own right. This This woman has hands. She can strike. I mean, she is just, and I say this in the absolute nicest way, and no disrespect to her, Amanda Nunes is a dog. She gets it. She is like a little pit bull. And I remember watching that Cyborg fight when she was throwing strikes. Her strikes had evil intentions. I mean, even when she throws, you can kind of see that snarl on her face. You see the way her eyebrows get tense, the way she fixes her face up like she is throwing a strike to try to hurt you. So I'm a big fan of Amanda Nunes. And really, she has beaten the who's who in women's mixed martial arts in the last couple years. We've already mentioned Cyborg. She's already has beaten Holly Holm, knocked Ronda Rousey out of the UFC and into the WWE, beaten Miesha Tate, beaten Sarah McCann, and lost a close split decision fight to Valentina Shevchenko. So I think at this stage, who else is there for Amanda Nunes to fight? Because she has basically cleaned out the women's division in the UFC. But I understand that there clearly are not enough women fighters as they are men fighters. So Amanda Nunes can only fight who they put in front of her. I'm sure the UFC PR machine will manufacture and create and get public interest behind an opponent for Amanda Nunes. But this, I don't see her being beaten anytime soon. They'll maybe push for a rematch with Valentina Shevchenko because they fought to a split decision. So I can see the UFC hype machine, the PR machine trying to push that narrative out there that in fact they've already had a split decision, try to go for a rematch to see if it will be much more competitive than the first time. So definitely another good job for Amanda Nunes. I mean, she is definitely true, the greatest female mixed martial arts fighter of all time. And people was ready to give that mantle to Ronda Rousey before she ran into Holly Holm in Australia. Then Holly Holm was on the way until she ran into Miesha Tate. Everybody thought Cyborg was a female until she ran into Amanda Nunes. So definitely Amanda Nunes, greatest female fighter of all time. Now moving on to the main event for the UFC Welterweight Championship versus champion Kamaru Usman versus challenger Colby Covington. Now, a little bit about their resume. Kamaru Usman was 15-1, and that one loss came from his second fight. So that's saying a lot. 15-1, the one loss in his second professional fight. Former Ultimate 21 winner, fighting for the team, the Black Zillions. In May of 2018, on another UFC Fight Night card, defeated Jiu-Jitsu World Champion and Jiu-Jitsu Ace Damian Maia by unanimous decision. On another Tough Enough finale in November of 2018, a unanimous decision over former lightweight champion world Rafael dos Anjos. And in March of 2019, he fought defending champion Tyron Woodley, who at that time who had made 4 title defenses, including 3 wins. He had 1 draw that was later avenged. And you would think that Tyron really was a favorite going into that fight. And a rather easy unanimous decision for Kamaru Usman, for I felt he out-wrestled Tyron Woodley, which was shocking because Tyron Woodley's strength is his wrestling. And he definitely won that fight, dominated that fight versus Tyron Woodley. So this was a heated and anticipated battle between Colby, Let's Make America Great Again Covington, who his resume reads, October 2017 on the UFC Fight Night, or his notable fights I should say, defeated Damian Maia via unanimous decision. UFC 225, June 2018, again, beat Rafael dos Anjos. Have you noticed the UFC, you tend to read a lot of these same names on records? In August of 2014, beat former champion Robbie Lawler via unanimous decision on the UFC on the ESPN card, and he set the record for most strikes. So clearly both guys were 15-1 heading into this matchup, a highly contested battle, and definitely emotional on both sides, and that was really stoked by Colby Covington, who has gladly and proudly taken his role as the bad guy, who has gladly and proudly taken his role as the villain, not only with him being a quote, well, I won't say quote, being a Republican and a staunch Trump supporter, definitely has rubbed fans the wrong way, which he has every right to his political ideology and his affiliation, but it is something worthwhile mentioning that. And going in the first round, definitely a very even first round, I think. A very even first round. Both guys did some good damage. I thought the second round that Colby Covington won the second round, I thought landed harder, better strikes. But there was something that Kamaru Usman was doing. Now, I thought Colby Covington was trying to mix up his attack, was trying to set the pace. Because clearly when you set the record for most strikes in a UFC welterweight fight, you clearly have, well, stamina is your strength. And clearly he was trying to push the action. He didn't want to let Kamaru get a feel. He didn't let Kamaru fight at his own pace. So he was clearly trying to push the action. The problem was he was being hit to the body with hard right hands. And I've always said this, when you hit a man to the body enough times, when he goes to step on the gas pedal, he's going to have nothing left in the tank. Landing that front kick to the body, it wasn't hard, but it was slowly starting to chip away at him. And physically, even though Colby Covington might have had the faster hands that was trying to push the pace, the power department, it belonged to Kamaru Usman. And when he hit him, he hurt him. When he hit him, he hurt him. When he was landing shots, clearly it was taking something away. It was starting to chip away at Colby Covington. The turning point came at the beginning of the third round, where a hard right hand broke the jaw of Colby Covington. And definitely that turned the tide, but I will give Colby Covington credit. He never quit. Came back, fought the fourth round. One can make your argument that going into the fifth round, the fight was tied 2-2. So the fifth round was up for grabs. You clearly saw the swelling on the right side of Colby Covington's face. Nice stiff jabs down the middle. Clearly jaw broken, blood pouring out of his mouth. And I felt that Kamaru really could have pressed the action even more when he knew he hurt him, because you can clearly, you heard the shot that landed that broke his jaw. You heard the shot that landed. And I thought Kamaru should have pushed the action some more. But of course, you're always worried and cognizant of the incoming fire before you go charging it. So obviously, he's a thinking man's fighter, so I definitely give him that. In the fifth round, dropped him with a nice right. He dropped him nice and good. He stood back up, drops him again. Now, there's a saying, you must defend yourself intelligently and defend yourself at all times. And the second knockdown, when Kamaru Usman started raining down punches, Colby Covington was not defending himself. He was clearly trying to cover up, but he was not fighting back. And the referee had no choice but to stop the fight. Now, of course, Colby Covington has a lot to say about the referee. He wants to blame the referee for the early stoppage. The issue wasn't with the referee. The issue was with the fighter who actually broke your jaw. And my issue when I was watching the fight was this. Clearly, Colby Covington had an American flag in his corner. Of course, being a Trump supporter, that definitely gets the base up and emotional, while Usman had the Nigerian flag. Now, in the first round, clearly there was a chant of USA, USA in the corner, which you can make the argument that you had an American fighter versus a foreign fighter. But what I find funny is goes back to what my guy Tariq Nasheed said. And this is not for Colby Covington per se, this is for the fans in the audience. The same fans in the audience who was chanting USA, USA, USA when it was Colby Covington fighting a black foreigner, that same energy wasn't there all the times that Floyd Mayweather was in the ring. And I'm talking specifically when he fought foreigner Conor McGregor, where everybody wore Irish flags, so they put the American flag down. You heard no chants of USA in the crowd, and everybody was chanting everybody was chanting McGregor, McGregor, McGregor. And that is some of the hypocrisy that people talk about with some mainstream sports fans. Not mainstream, but actually with sports fans. And when it came to a Colby Covington versus a black man who was not from this country, they would chant USA and patriotic pride all day. But when Floyd Mayweather was the American-born man and you had a white, non-American or foreign-born white male all of a sudden the white folks in the crowd started to cheer for this person. And I felt that the broken jaw, like Tariq Nasheed says, was Ogun. And of course, Ogun from West Africa, Nigeria being in West Africa, Kamaru Usman being of Nigerian descent. Just throwing it out there that just that Ogun spirit. And to me, that was a break in the jaw to all the fans who were chanting USA, because we all know that American patriotism is very finicky at best. We know American, quote, patriotism can be very hypocritical. Again, look at the Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather fight. So, of course, people, and I felt that if Colby Covington was to win that fight and win the championship, we wouldn't have heard the end of Colby Covington. He would have had his Make America Great Again hat on. One can make the argument that Kamaru Usman made the UFC great again, that hopefully Colby Covington's jaw can be made great again. And definitely all the credit in the world to Kamaru Usman for definitely winning this fight. And I always think knock the person out, because one judge, from what I read in a news article, one judge actually had Colby Covington up 3-1 going into the 5th round. So, which means there could have been a possibility that if Kamaru Usman did not knock out Colby Covington, he would have lost his title. And we all know how the crowd would have reacted. And now going back to the crowd's reaction, rooting for a white American fighter and a non-American black man. Again, going back to Floyd Mayweather fighting Conor McGregor, this goes back to when Jack Johnson was fighting and black folks would get lynched. And when people say, well, damn, D, you always have to make this about race. I don't make it about race. I think the mainstream society, they make it about race. They look at it as a racial issue. They're the ones who abandon the American flag to root for a foreign fighter versus a black American fighter. So we're not making it about race. We're simply just observing that things can become about race. I go back to the Quentin Rampage Jackson and the Chuck Liddell fight back in May of 2007. I was at a sports bar. I knew Rampage fighting from Pride. White folks were in the bar cheering on Chuck Liddell, cheering him on. Rampage was going to get his ass kicked. And after the first round, you could hear a pin drop and people were walking out of the bar, damn near not even want to even pay their bill. So I'm not making this a race issue. I'm simply just observing that sports has taken on, or has in a way been the football field, the boxing ring, and now the octagon. In their mind, is now the battleground for racism, the battleground for political ideology. So if we look at it as, you know, this was a knockout for Trump supporters and a knockout for the Republican Party, then so be it. But if Kamaru Usman was to lose that fight and Colby Covington was to win that fight, I'm pretty sure we would have been hearing other things that are being said, you know, if Kamaru Usman was to lose that fight. So we're going to simply just bask in the glory. Definitely a great night of UFC action. Definitely waiting for my guy John Jones to step back into the ring in February for the octagon. We're definitely going to cover that fight. So this is Chin Check Radio. Until the next time.